Sachs,
Here.
Mayor Limpert.
Here. I'd like to start tonight's meeting in memory of our friend Stephanie Chorney, who passed away last night. Stephanie was a tireless and passionate community activist. She was a former member of the Princeton Environmental Commission, and she was a fighter until the end. And I just a member of council wish list for us that we'll be working on trying to fulfill all the things she wasn't able to do, but she had done so much for our community, and it's a better place because of her. So please join me in a moment of silence for Stephanie. Okay, thank you. The first item on our agenda tonight is the minutes. We have several sets of minutes from September 10th, open and closed session, and then also September 14th. Are there any comments or corrections to the minutes, or is there a motion to approve both of all three sets of minutes? Moved by Ms. Fraga. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Cohen. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the minutes pass, and next we come to announcements, and I'll start with Council President Cohen. Any announcements tonight?
I'll just repeat my announcement from the last meeting. The Princeton Senior Resource Center is having their fall fundraiser. It's Saturday night, October 17th. And the guest speaker is Al Franken. It should be interesting. And you can go to the PSRC website, which is www.princetonsenior.org, and to get more information and to order tickets.
Great, thank you. And Ms. Fraga, Councilwoman Fraga, any announcements?
No announcements today, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. Councilwoman Niedergang?
No announcements. Thank you.
Councilman Williamson?
None tonight, Mayor.
Okay. Councilwoman Perlambros, any announcements?
No announcements.
And Councilwoman Sachs?
Yes, I just wanted to remind everyone that we have a special council meeting this Saturday at 9 a.m. to review the design principles for the Franklin Affordable Housing Site. And there'll be people from different architects and planners from throughout the community presenting their ideas for the site, and it should be exciting, and strongly encourage everyone to join.
Excellent, thank you. And I have a quick announcement. This is a save your date. So October 24th is going to be Princeton's Shred Fest. Normally it's Shredtemberfest, but it's going to be in October, so we have to think of another catchy name. Anybody have a catchy name can email me separately. But for now, mark your calendars for October 24th. And there'll be more information about that as we get closer to the date. The other thing, I see our health officer here, and in his honor, I wanted to just remind everybody that the town has an ongoing flu clinic, and we're really stressing how important it is for people to get a flu shot this year. Even if you don't normally get one and you want to start the practice, this is the best year to do that. It's really important, and the earlier at this point you can get it, the better prepared and protected you'll be. So there's all these fun rhymes about getting it before Halloween. You have the whole month of October to get it, and if you miss that, you can still get it in November, but the sooner you can get it, the better. The dates are up on the town website. And you can also get a shot from your doctor or from one of the local pharmacies too. Are there any, Mr. Cohen?
I just wanted to mention, I thought you were going to announce this, Liz, but we do have another special council meeting coming up on October 19th, which is going to be focused on transportation issues. So again, want people to mark their calendars. That'll be a regular evening meeting.
Thank you. And are there any staff announcements? Nope. Okay. Then we will move on to public comment for items that aren't already on the agenda. And I don't think we received any emails ahead of time. Just wanted to confirm with Mr. DeShield that hopefully I didn't miss something.
Yes, there were a number of emails sent. Should be emails.
Yeah, but they were all on items that were on the agenda that I received.
Okay. They are for items on the agenda.
Right, okay.
There's a new one that was just sent to you just about a minute ago.
Was that on the agenda also?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So then I'd like to open it up. It looks like there's 3 people who have their hands up. So we'll start with Wilma Solomon. And go ahead, you should, if you unmute yourself, you should be able to speak.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm still a little shaken by hearing about Stephanie. I didn't know.
I know. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay, so this is in memory of our dear friend and advocate Daniel Harris, who I know often spoke about a land acknowledgement that many communities now lead with, both here in the United States and other countries. So I would like to do a land acknowledgement of the Native tribes that have been on this ground for so long. The land on which we stand is part of the ancient homeland and traditional territory of the Lenni Lenape people. We pay respect to Lenni Lenape peoples past, present, and future, and their continuing presence in the homeland and throughout the Lenni Lenape diaspora. And I hope perhaps the council and other governmental and private organizations will consider starting their meetings with this kind of acknowledgement. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wilma.
Wendy Maker.
I think, Liz, that Wendy is here to speak about open space. If that's right, maybe we want to wait until that's up.
Yeah, well, she had her. I mean,
Okay.
Wendy, you can speak if you have something not on the agenda.
Yes, thank you. I did want to talk about the issue of an open space manager, so I raised my hand in an abundance of caution.
Okay, yeah, we'll get to that in a little bit. And then Dan Guerrero.
We have approximately 3 minutes to speak,
Yes.
right? And I noticed Ms. Solomon mentioned the Lenni Lenape Indians. I wanted to comment on something that's very dear to me, and that's my Italian nationality and the fact that you changed Columbus Day and how you're going to celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day in Princeton. Am I allowed to comment on that?
Yes.
As Gwendolyn states in The Importance of Being Earnest, sometimes it is not just a moral duty, but a pleasure to speak. Tonight, I would like to speak about the bigotry, bias, and prejudice this board exercised by replacing Columbus Day with Indigenous Peoples Day. Yes, it would have been appropriate to pick another day or a whole month for the Native Americans, and yet Italians were discarded with no recognition of their accomplishments. Eugene F. Rivers III, the African-American founder of the Seymour Institute for Black Church and Policy Studies, wrote in a 2016 column at CNA that proposals to end Columbus Day are divisive and are based on stereotypes. While there were deplorable consequences of colonization, attacks on Columbus were created in the 1920s by the Ku Klux Klan as part of a targeted assault on Italians, Catholics, and the Catholic charitable group, the Knights of Columbus, he wrote. Taking ownership of a bygone era, New Orleans Mayor LaToya Cottrell, an African-American, formally apologized to the families of 11 immigrants who were lynched in this city more than a century ago. She condemned anti-immigrant violence of all forms. President Harrison, an ethical man, knew that the lynching was wrong and that Italians had suffered discrimination. As a result, he instituted Columbus Day to show America had a different side, not seen here in Princeton, which I call a town of hate, at least as to Italian Americans. The mayor of Chicago, Lori Lightfoot, an African American, was against removing the Columbus statue. However, it has been temporarily removed because of the problems Chicago is now facing. The Honorable Constance Baker Motley, an African American judge, in a case in 1992, Seltzer versus University of New York, 806 Supplement 1126, determined that Italians had in fact been discriminated against by the City College of New York. She saw through the smiling faces which bigotry presents itself with. This was in 1992. Finally, Patrick Mason, a Native American, stated that it's ridiculous to blame what happened here in America on Columbus. It takes away from the real needs of the indigenous people's community. Mayor Lampert, I'm sorry to say, but in all equity and fairness, if nothing can be done better than this, then perhaps you should resign. And I would like to mention Ms. Letitia Frege, who talks about civil rights. How could she be so cruel to talk about civil rights and not give any recognition at all to Italian Americans? The Princeton you will see with that attitude may easily become like Portland, where the police have been injured. In conclusion, I would like to say to all immigrants to America who must take menial jobs, have their language, custom, and religion ridiculed and suffer abuse, that against all bigotry and political ambition that Princeton has demonstrated, tonight, your voice has been heard. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I promise I'll be very brief, Mayor Lampert, if I can respond.
Yep, sure.
I just want to thank you, Mr. Guerrero. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly for your comments, but I do wish to clarify and invite everyone to please take a look at a resolution that was adopted last year, recognizing Indigenous Peoples Day. There is no mention at all in there of Columbus Day or Christopher Columbus. This resolution was moved forward by the Civil Rights Commission, wishing to acknowledge the people who inhabited our land before us, and it was in recognition and celebration of Indigenous peoples. But there is no mention of Columbus Day or no replacement, no cancellation. It's just basically honoring and celebrating Indigenous people. And another comment that I wish to add is during Welcoming Week, Princeton is a welcoming community, and every year there's a week in September where we celebrate our welcoming community, Welcoming America. And one of those days, one of my favorite events that we sponsor with Human Services and that I'm very proud to take part in is our Culture Sharing Day. And from the first year that we celebrated Welcoming Week and that we started having a Culture Sharing Day, our Italian American community has participated in that. And it's a really wonderful event, and I would encourage you to participate. Sadly, we were not able to have it this year, but I would encourage you to participate and take part next year, hopefully, where we can do it in person. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and Councilman Williamson?
Just briefly, thank you. And I'm not sure if your name is spelled Guerrero or Guerrero. Thank you for your comments, first of all. And I do acknowledge that Italian Americans have seen a lot of, over our nation's history, it has seen discrimination. But just a couple facts to get straight. The first thing is Princeton never had a Columbus Day. So Princeton was not replacing Columbus Day with Indigenous Peoples Day because we never recognized the Columbus Day. That said, the second a correction that needs to be made is that the criticisms against Columbus is not against Italian Americans. You've stated that too broadly. I've read the actual translated ship logs of Christopher Columbus himself. The criticisms are against the man, Cristobal Colombo, and the horrible things he wrote and did himself when he got here, including having his men cut off the hands of Native Americans if they didn't bring in certain quotas of precious metals, when he himself wrote to Isabella and Ferdinand about how weak these natives were. So the criticism against he, the man. One of the difficulties in our nation is how do we recognize great things that were accomplished. I do say it did take much bravery for he to be the sea captain on that 3-ship expedition that went out. The difficulty is how do you recognize great accomplishments of people and balance that with the wicked things they did. We see that with many of our founding fathers, as we call them. So that's something we need to have more dialogue on. But the bottom line is we need to speak truth to power. And if we're going to criticize something, let us know exactly what it is that's actually being criticized. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. And I see that former Councilman Lance Liverman wants to make a comment. Hey, Lance, if you unmute yourself, you should be able to speak. Go ahead.
Can you see me or hear me?
We can hear you.
Oh, good. Hey, thank all you guys for all the work you're doing. Think, you're doing a great job. And I just, I don't, I retired, so I don't have to listen to all this stuff all night long. But I decided to, let me tune in tonight and see what's going on. I know Dwayne, Dwayne, I know Mia, I know. What am I doing? I should be like in pajamas in the bathtub or something. But I just want to say this. Princeton has had a relationship between the Italian Americans and everyone else for years. And it's been a positive relationship for years. And I don't want anything to be miscued or turned around because of any kind of comments that may have been made tonight. So I'm just saying, just me, that I think that you guys are on par. You guys are on target. I don't think that any negative items that may be coming out today, I personally feel they're unjustly. And I think that we need more research into what is being said. That's all I'm saying. And thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Perlambros?
I have a lot to add, but as a immigrant, 100% Italian immigrant that has all my roots here in Princeton, I just felt compelled to say that if there's anything that the Italian American community can do more of and be more engaged, I'm happy to champion that. We have not done anything this year, unfortunately, with Welcoming Week, but there's always a lot of possibilities of things we can do. So I just want to say, I want to reach out. I echoed the sentiments of my fellow council members that have already spoken about this, and appreciate your speaking up, but let's get it straight and do anything we can to make sure we've addressed the concerns. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay. And I think that concludes public comment for items that are not on tonight's agenda. So we'll move on to reports. And you'll see that there are several months of police reports on the agenda tonight. And normally we'll have a discussion about the numbers from each month and what they mean. I just want to remind everybody that these numbers are sort of from the height of the shutdown. So the fact that they're off from the prior year, I think it's my sense is that I think we just want to be careful about drawing any major conclusions from them, and that might preclude us from having as meaningful conversation about what the numbers mean as they normally do, because we're living in such unusual times. But I did want to welcome Captain Morgan here and just see if you had any, if you wanted to share any thoughts or comments on the reports. And, you know, we're going to have you back in just a few agenda items to talk more broadly about the department. But if there's questions from council for you, also wanted to give the opportunity for that also.
Yeah, just to mention a few things though, Mayor, and thank you. Yeah, I apologize for putting 4 months of reports on there, but I thought it was important for us to get caught up with our reports. They take a lot of time and a lot of effort to put together, and with the staffing schedules, keeping everybody safe, it's been difficult for us to get these reports together, but we were able to get August completed as well. So again, I apologize, but I wanted to try to get us caught up to date. The numbers are low when you compare them to last year for the call volume, arrests, and the motor vehicle stops. Obviously, a lot of that's just related to the pandemic right now. Just a couple of other things maybe to point out. Not in the report, but we are managing our PPE information or equipment that we have. A lot of it was turned over to OEM, but we're managing that here as well. And I know firearms was brought up last time. We are still seeing an increase in the firearms requests for permits to purchase. I think we're at 150 now this year, compared to all of last year, it was at 50. So we're expecting to go up over 200 this year, which is something that we haven't seen.
Thanks. Ms. Niedergang?
What a perfect segue. I had sent you an email earlier today, but unfortunately, Chief Morgan, I didn't get to the police report until this morning. So, but there were a couple of questions that I wanted to follow up on, and firearms is one of them. I do remember you bringing them up when you submitted the 2019 report, and we talked about some issues regarding that. But so reading this over, I had a couple of thoughts about this, and I'm not myself a gun owner, and so I ask for you to excuse me if I understand the motivations wrongly. But one of the thoughts I had is that people buy guns for protection, and so there's some concern of an external threat, and I wonder if we have any demographic data on who the people are who are applying for firearms permits. I know at the beginning of the pandemic, when there was a lot of antagonism, maybe it still exists now, but I haven't read a lot about it, against people of Chinese descent or Chinese Americans, because of the whole idea that the virus came from China. And I know that there were some stories about a lot of Chinese Americans purchasing guns. So I'm wondering if there's, what I'm trying to get at, is there some group in our community that is feeling afraid? And what can we do? What do these applications for firearm permits tell us about work that we should be doing as a community, possibly, to make these groups feel confident that their lives, their property, their persons are secure? So, and my second kind of follow-up question about firearms, and I do have a couple of other questions too, is, do you know, is this like one, I know often people that own guns own multiple guns. Is this one person applying for their 10th gun, or is it, 10 individuals applying? So if you could talk a little bit about that, I'd appreciate it.
So to answer your last question, we are at 150 background investigations. So that's 150 different people. And yes, they could be applying for multiple permits to purchase. I did get your email. We've had a little bit of an emotional day today. with the chief retiring. So I apologize for not getting back to you, but I was able to hold over a few detectives and pull them away to try to find some information for you. With the changes in the firearm processing, now all online and going through the state police, some of the information has changed that we were collecting. So we don't ask why people are applying for a permit. We're not allowed to ask for any additional information other than what's required in the initial application for the background and then state police approval. So I can't speak directly to why people feel that they need to purchase. We do know that typically during election years, the amount of requests for firearms applications do go up. There is also, I think it's been removed, but my understanding was from the governor's office, there was going to be a significant increase in applying for firearms. So that could possibly be the trend. The demographics, we only have some information from this year because everything has shifted the way it's being applied for now online. So as I understand it, and again, I apologize, but again, it was a bit of a busy day, but out of the 150, it's 56% are white, 36% are Asian, and 7% are Black. And again, that's just from the applications coming through. We categorize our own reports and then it goes off to state police. But it'd be very difficult for me to comment on exactly why they're asking for the permits.
I'm sorry, Mayor. I just wanted to.
Can I
Hold
just?
on. So I think Ms. Fraga was next, but let's
What-
have Ms. Niedergame. Did you want to
Well,
finish?
I had a
your-
couple of other questions, but if other people have things about this issue,
Right.
you can come back to me, but I do have a couple of other questions. So
Mine
are
was
you,
just
And
appreciate
mine
what Eve said.
Sorry, mine was just a follow-up too about the firearms. It's not related to the report, but because Ms. Niedergang brought it up. I don't know if it was last year or the year before at one of our public safety meetings, I learned that the police department had some firearm safety locks that you had in stock that would sometimes give away. I don't know if it would be at events or when there were applications were being made. And I was just curious to know whether that's still available, whether there's enough to provide to those applicants.
We do. So for every applicant that comes in for a permit to purchase, we give them a gun safety lock.
Right.
We
Good to
still offer that program.
Good to know. Thank you.
You bet.
Mr. Williamson?
I'm sorry to jump in there before Mayor. It was just that the comment I was going to make is sort of a just to add some information to well, Eve had a question and the captain had an answer, but I just this is me being an attorney here. I'm wondering if the law is the same where you can apply for a new permit, which will be a new application with background checks. However, on a New Jersey law, if you want a handgun, you after you get that permit, you only get a 3-month window with the initial permit to get a handgun, but you have to apply each time you want to get a new handgun. So I'm wondering if there's any differentiation made between the permit, which always gives a person the right to get a long gun, and the individual reapplication for handguns. So sort of my regular hybrid question comments. So Chief, I don't know if you want to shed any light on that issue.
Yeah, so again, just trying to gather some of these numbers briefly right before the meeting. My understanding is that it's 150 different people coming in, not the actual permits to purchase.
Okay.
We've completed 150 backgrounds on people.
Right, for the regular
Correct.
gun permit as opposed to the.
And then you have the 30 days. You have
handgun permit.
you have
Right.
the 30 days to go ahead, and then you lose your permit.
Right.
Correct. Yep.
Right.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks for that clarification. And I just want to clarify, Chief Morgan, I was not at all like I was feeling bad that I had sent you those questions so late, not that I was upset that you hadn't responded to me. So I really do appreciate, just to clarify, I really do appreciate that you were able to get some information, and that's useful to know. So my other questions, and given the mayor's comment that this is obviously an abnormal year, but I am very concerned about the reduction in enforcement of speeding in particular, because what I've heard anecdotally from police who I feel do have their ears more to the ground than residents, and that whether or not somebody is actually speeding, that with first the initial reduction in traffic due to COVID and less traffic on the road, that the incidences of speeding have just really gone up. And it's certainly a complaint I hear from residents, but that has definitely been verified by police officers I've spoken with. And so I'm very concerned to see such a dramatic decrease. I understand in May, June, but by the time the the stay-at-home order was lifted in June, continuing into July and August, just a tremendous decrease from last year on speeding enforcement. And I'm wondering, is it that resources are have been shifted elsewhere because of the pandemic, and when might we see more attention paid to that particular issue?
Well, we tend to look at traffic enforcement and speed enforcement, not just by motor vehicle stops and not just by summonses. So we would use the variable message boards. We'll put out decoy cars on roads, and we'll have our officers go and just be stationary on a road that we get a lot of complaints on. And you're right, traffic has probably been the #1 complaint that we've seen over the years. And if you look back at January and February, we were very active in motor vehicle enforcement, in particular with speeding. However, because of the pandemic, and we acknowledge that those numbers are significantly lower, if in order to keep everyone safe within the police department, because there's fears within the police department as well as it relates to the pandemic, and schools not being in session and the building here not being open, if we had an issue with COVID making its way through the police department, it would create a serious staffing issue for us going forward, to the point where we did have to change some of our schedules in the way we were policing. So our lack of enforcement with actual making motor vehicle stops, yes, that's true, and that is strictly just from a safety perspective. There's also with the PPE equipment, it has been recommended to us that every time you make a motor vehicle stop, you should wear a new pair of gloves, because you're touching someone's license, registration, and insurance. So that comes into play as well with, how much PPE do we have to go around to wear new equipment every time you're making a motor vehicle stop. But understand though, just because we're not making motor vehicle stops and issuing summonses, we are using other means to try to reduce the issue with speeding in town.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that explanation.
Are there any other questions for the captain at this point? Okay, so thanks. We'll have you back in probably 5 minutes or so. And we'll move on to other reports. We'll start with Council President Cohen. Any reports?
I do not have any reports tonight.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Fraga?
No reports, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Councilwoman Niedergang?
I guess it's my turn to talk a lot tonight. Yes, I do have a couple of reports. Just want to note that the plastic bag bill passed the assembly and is on the governor's desk, and he's indicated that he would sign this. It has an 18-month transition period. I know this is something that was near and dear to Stephanie's heart, and also Daniel Harris, who was mentioned earlier. So I just wanted to pay a little bit of tribute to them along with that, that really good news on that front. And I wanted to report on a couple of things that happened at the Sewer Operating Committee. The Princeton Seminary, which owns a property in Lawrence, right across the dividing line between Princeton and Lawrence, runs something they call the Farminary, which is a place where people go to work on the land and raise food and take classes and learn more about connections with the land and about their faith. And really, we got a lovely little presentation about that. They are about 350 feet from the Princeton sanitary sewer line, but 3/4 of a mile from the nearest Lawrence sewer line, or at least we think that's the case. And so they've applied to hook up the to the Princeton sanitary sewer. Princeton has never accommodated anybody outside of Princeton before, so it's a novel undertaking with possible concerns that we're not sure about. So the Princeton Sewer Operating Chair, David Goldfarb, who's very experienced in this area, suggested to the seminary that they establish an escrow fund and that we could use that to investigate this, to understand what the potential hidden costs or liabilities might be for Princeton to help the Farminary out, which certainly we would be inclined to do if it was possible, and if it didn't set a precedent that might, come back to bite us in some way. So you'll be hearing more about that as time goes on, and that leads me to segue into another application to the Sewer Operating Committee from residents of the Autumn Hill area of Princeton. And they have been previously on septic, and they're now hooking up to the town sanitary sewer. And they put in a request for the town to cover not all, but a good portion of those costs. And based on precedent in Princeton historically, including in the last couple of years, when people who've been on septic join the sanitary sewer, they pay those costs themselves. The engineering department will do the bidding and the arranging of the contract, but then the residents pay those costs. And there was no reason that the Sewer Operating Committee could find to overturn that precedent, which is also the engineering department indicated to us the norm throughout New Jersey. So the residents were given time to speak and their concerns were addressed, but the recommendation of the committee was to not approve that request. So it's my reports. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Williamson, any reports tonight?
None, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Perrin-Lambros, any reports?
Yes, just one briefly. I want to mention that last week, the Economic Development Committee unanimously passed a measure to begin the process of creating a comprehensive revitalization program. There's several areas the committee is concerned with, not the least of which is the challenges that we're seeing in a number, unfortunately, of growing vacancies. But in order to address the many needs for the business community and likely address the need for sustained professional and full-time management.
Perrin-Lambros, any reports?
Yes, just one briefly. I want to.
I hear myself talking.
Oh, that's weird.
I think there was something happened with the recording.
Oh.
Anyway, sorry, I don't.
I'm sorry, Mary. Can you hear me?
Now I can.
I'm sorry. I was kind of in the middle of the report. Did that get recorded or should I start from the beginning?
I think so. It looks like it's still recording. I'm not sure what that was.
Yeah, we heard you, or I heard you, Michelle.
Let me wrap up then. So anyway, in order to begin the process, or in order to address all the needs for bringing aboard sustained professional and full-time management to manage Princeton's economic development initiatives, the majority of, there's many communities in New Jersey, country that have staff that would work on behalf of, be paid for, and report to the business community directly. So in order to begin the process of looking at this, the Economic Development Committee has requested that Princeton Council provide initial funding for a consultant who would facilitate the beginning of this process by meeting with stakeholders, reviewing options for funding, and making recommendations. And the study process would begin with an initial round of meetings. Selected and stakeholders would be selected and recommended by the EDC. And we'll be reaching out to business owners and managers and landlords to participate if everyone agrees this evening. And I just mentioned to, if you're interested, to please contact me. Thank you. I hope that went through okay.
Yeah, no, that was good. Thank you. I think we have a resolution coming up on that later in the agenda. And Councilwoman Sachs, any reports tonight?
Yeah, I just want to announce that we are going to be, I guess this is more of an announcement, but also a report that we've been, we want to have Shred Timber Fest, except it will be in October. And I think, do we have a date? It's October 24th?
Yeah, October 24th.
Yeah, so we'll be providing more details, but we're excited for that to be happening. So that's a Public Works Department update.
Excellent, thank you. All right, and I wanted to just thank the Arts Council for their new mural downtown that says "Vote." Used to say "Stronger Together," and that's going to be a place of semi-temporary murals that rotate seasonally every couple months. So there'll be something fresh there to look forward to, and I think the new mural couldn't be more timely. So I wanted to use that as a jumping off point for just a reminder to folks that we're almost full swing in election season. That I guess a couple things. One, we should all be receiving, if you're a registered voter, you should be receiving your vote by mail ballot soon. When you receive it, there are a couple things you can do with it. Probably one of the best things you can do with it is vote right away and then bring it to the drop box at 400 Witherspoon Street. That box is the county election folks are going to be collecting from that box directly. You can also drop your ballot in the mail, and just make sure you read through all the instructions and are using the envelopes correctly and filling it out correctly so that your vote gets counted. There will be some actual polling places open on November 3rd, Election Day. But if you were mailed a ballot, you will not be able to vote on the machine. You will be able to drop your ballot at the polling place, but we are really encouraging folks to get your ballot in before that, so we're not creating congestion at the polling places for people who have some sort of issue that requires them to vote at the polling place. So that's that for local candidates. Just wanted to remind everybody that if you have a lawn sign, we encourage you to make sure those lawn signs go on people's lawns and that they don't go in the municipal right of way. Because we know, all of us who've run before, signs are really expensive. When you put them in the municipal right of way, we're often forced into going around and collecting them, and we don't want to be collecting your signs and disposing of them. So make sure they go on private property, on people's lawns, to show where your supporters are. Yeah, Mr. Cohen?
I just wanted to say one more word about the voting timetable, which is that it's really helpful to get your vote by mail ballots in early, because there's a new rule that's been permitted allowing ballots to be counted in advance of Election Day. And in order for the votes to all be tallied by Election Day, they need to get the votes in ahead of time. So that's another reason not to drop your ballot at the polling place.
Excellent, thank you. And then that reminded me, one last thing is the deadline to register to vote is October 13th. So get yourself registered if you haven't yet. Are there any staff reports? Nope. Okay. Then we'll move on to correspondence, and I will say that there's something here for correspondence. We're actually going to be moving it to the Saturday meeting, October 3rd, because it pertains to the Franklin development. So we thought we'd keep that all those materials together to make it easier for folks. So you'll see that again at Saturday's meeting. So I'll ask the clerk's office and I'll follow up to please move that onto Saturday's agenda. Next, we come to the ordinance introduction, ordinance 2020-31, an ordinance concerning salaries and compensation of certain personnel of the municipality of Princeton. And this ordinance is, the purpose of it is as a first step to creating an open space manager position, and wanted to ask Mr. DeShield if he wanted to explain to council the reasoning behind this. Oops, you're on mute.
What the following ordinance amendment provide for council this evening is to add the title of the open space manager to our salary ordinance, and it will allow us to create this position. This position came about after discussions with members of the Public Works Committee. With our current environment, with the pandemic, we have seen increased need for citizens to use our open space, particularly our passive open spaces. And that has also created issues where more and more people are using our open spaces. There's a need for additional open space. That being the case, one of the things we wanted to do was to try to meet the needs of our residents by doing some things that were brought up previously by the Open Space Advisory Committee some years ago in their report, where they identified some things that we could do to better manage our open space. One of those things was to create this position of the open space manager. And that's what this would do, create that position. And what the position would be attempting to do was to take a look at our open spaces, manage those spaces better to provide more opportunities for our residents to use those open spaces, particularly in these times of the pandemic. This is just the first stage of that process, which is establishing that position. There will be two, the introduction and a public hearing on this ordinance. Once that's approved, we'll move into the next step. This position will be paid through the Open Space Fund. The Open Space Fund does provide an opportunity for municipalities to use those funds for the maintenance of its open space, particularly its passive open spaces. That being the case, that's where those funds will come from. It will not impact our current fund budget. Are there any questions?
Okay, thank you. There were a couple comments that came in, so I'll read them as part of the introduction, and just also wanted to let everybody know if this is successfully introduced tonight, there'll also be a public hearing. So the first is from Sarah Ringer. I'm a resident of Princeton, a taxpayer to Princeton, and a member of Friends of Princeton Open Space, FOPOS, with which I volunteer on a regular basis. I'm also a trustee of that organization. As such, I care about the community around me and the land that has been preserved from development and how my tax dollars are spent. I also care deeply about the stewardship of the lands that have been protected. I'm not alone in feeling this way. A few years ago, the Passive Open Space Advisory Committee issued its list of recommendations, and the primary one was to hire an open space manager. The open space tax was approved by voters to provide funding for this position. As a volunteer with FOPOS, I know how dedicated their trustees and a core group of volunteers are to being stewards of the land they manage. I also know how thinly stretched and overcommitted they are. A town of Princeton's size and reputation cannot depend solely on volunteers to care for its open space and manage the attendant issues that come up. At the very least, a specific knowledgeable liaison is needed as climate change wreaks consequences everywhere, requiring vigilance, planning, and action if open space stewardship is not to be in vain. I urge the council members to vote in support of hiring an open space manager for Princeton, however that can be accomplished, in order to support and sustain land conservation efforts now and into the future. And that's from Sarah Ringer, Pardo Road. The next is from Anna-Ree Lyles. Dear Princeton Council, I write to express my heartfelt support for creating and funding the open space manager role. Every day I ramble 3 to 5 miles through the extensive Princeton open space trails with my dogs. It is how I maintain my mental and physical health. Others are using our nature spaces more too, especially in our patches of nature near to town. And during this pandemic, the trails everywhere are more extensively used, even relatively bustling in a few locations such as mountain lakes and the canal paths. Although many of us have anecdotally noticed this uptick in use, Dr. Zoe Volnick, who served on the Princeton Environmental Commission, was able to document increased use from big data she scraped social media as part of her doctoral research at Princeton University. It is especially good to see families and people of color enjoying our parks and open spaces as they hike, bike, fish, and play together. It is also gratifying to see little groups of volunteers out working to restore the native flora, participating in safely distanced healing work such as this is balm for the soul. Although it is great that we can get volunteer help for some of this work, we can't rely upon volunteers alone to repair the widespread damage across our public nature spaces, which has been caused by deer browsing and invasive plants. Dedicated volunteers also do amazingly hard work to keep many of our trails open, safe, and maintained. For all the above reasons, and because the taxpayers are already voted to fund conservation of open space, which includes managing these spaces, I implore you to support the creation of the Open Space Manager for Princeton. Thank you for your consideration. And that's from Anna Lyles on Jefferson Road. Next is from Lee Varian. I'm not going to be able to attend Wednesday evening Zoom council meeting, but I would appreciate if my comments could be read into the record of the meeting. I'm writing as chair of the Friends of Rogers Refuge to strongly support the creation and funding of the position of Open Space Manager for Princeton. We voted for municipal open space tax, which could provide the dedicated funding for this important position that has been recommended several years ago by the Passive Open Space Advisory Committee. The Charles H. Rogers Wildlife Refuge contains some 39 acres and is located along Stony Brook on West Drive off Alexander Street, bordering the Institute for Advanced Study Woods. It was created more than 50 years ago by Princeton Township with an environmental easement from the Princeton Water Company, and is one of the first public natural open space areas created in Princeton. Today, it is a vibrant resource for birding and walking along several miles of 2 trails which surround the marsh and along the Stony Brook. The municipality provides support and maintenance of the pump, which supplies water from the Stony Brook to maintain the critical water levels in the 2 sections of the marsh from early spring to late fall. The trails are maintained by volunteers from the Friends of Rogers Refuge with occasional added support from the Trails Committee of the Friends of Princeton Open Space. I just got back from weed whacking on our newest trail, created in honor of our late chair, Fred Spar. As a 79-year-old, it would be wonderful to know that a town open space manager would be available to consult or enlist for help if the need should arise. Princeton has a wonderful collection of open spaces around the town, and we need to be able to support the town's investment in them with more than just all volunteer support in an ongoing basis. Okay, I don't see anybody else's hand up who's watching the meeting, and do want to say that
Liz,
there'll be.
there were 2 other letters, one from Sophie, the chair of PEC, and one from George D. Fernando, the chair of the Board of Health.
Okay, yeah, those might have just come in. Hold on.
I think they actually.
Okay, actually, yeah, all right. So yeah, I don't know if this came into comments, but I'll look for them in a second. This is from Maria Huega. Can the administration expand on the role and job description of the proposed new position of the Open Space Manager? Will this position be funded by municipal open space taxes? What is the current balance available in the Municipal Open Space Fund? What are the permitted uses of these funds? And that's from Maria Huega, Grover Avenue. And I think that Mr. DeShield answered some of those questions tonight. And I would say, Mark, if you're able to answer others, we can do that, or we can have that be part of the presentation at the public hearing.
Yes, but just briefly, part of the position for the open space manager will be in charge of stewardship of the open spaces, developing plans for implementation of expansion of public space of the passive open space, and also the maintenance of that space. Next steps of the process, again, there will be a public hearing. We'll be fully developing a job description for the position once that's approved, and moving forward with the recruitment process.
Okay, thank you. And I think because the other comments didn't come into Princeton comments, my recommendation is that we hold them for the public hearing. Councilwoman Sachs, if that's okay with you?
Sure.
Okay, and is there a motion? Oh,
Mayor, I just want
Nice.
to point out that Wendy Maker did raise her hand.
I see that now. Yes, sorry. Okay, if we can let Wendy Maker in to speak. And if you unmute yourself, Wendy, you'll be able to speak.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
We can, yes.
Yes, I will point out that I did submit a letter to the comments address, so I'm not sure what happened to it, but luckily other people really have made the points that I would have made in my letter. The only thing I did want to mention, which hasn't been brought up, is I actually think having an open space manager could have a positive effect fiscally, in the sense that there is money available from the Green Acres program, both for acquisitions and for stewardship projects, which requires a great deal of coordination and focus to get, because particularly for stewardship, the application process is very complicated. We went through it to get the grant for the forest restoration project at Mountain Lakes Preserve. So I think that would be another benefit of having an open space manager, because other people who have done this sort of thing in the past have plenty of other things on their plate. And I think Princeton could do even better in terms of the grants that it gets. That's all I had to say. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Councilwoman Niedergang, and I understood from your email earlier that you actually wanted to read your letter. And so I think we had let the mayor know that you wanted to read your letter. Did you want to read it, or should the mayor?
I think it might be more appropriate to have that be at the public hearing.
Okay.
I don't know if you
So-
can still hear me, but I do feel the other points in my letter have been made, but I'll try to tune in for the public hearing too. Thank you.
Great, thanks.
Thank you, Wendy.
Okay. So is there a motion to introduce this ordinance? Been moved by Ms. Sachs, seconded by Ms. Niedergang, and Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Perron-Lambros,
Yes.
Ms. Niedergang,
Yes.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Ms. Braga,
Yes.
Mr. Williamson,
Yes.
Ms. Sachs.
Yes.
And the public hearing for this ordinance will be on October 26th, 2020. And next we come to the section on the police department, and wanted to invite back Captain Morgan and Lieutenant Buchari. As Captain Morgan referenced earlier, this has been a big day for the Princeton Police Department. Earlier today, Chief Sutter officially retired, and in a moment we're going to be voting on a resolution that will be appointing the new chief, Chris Morgan, and also a bunch of other promotions from the cascading vacancies or openings that provides. I invited Captain Morgan here with us tonight to talk about his vision for the department and his goals, and give the council an opportunity to ask him some questions. I wanted to just take a moment to reintroduce him to council and the community. So Chris joined the former Princeton Township Police Department in 2000 after 3 years in the Mercer County Sheriff's Office. He received the Honorable Service Award and the Mercer County Volunteer of the Year Award from the Governor's Council on Alcohol and Drug Abuse, as well as numerous other service awards. He has served as a patrol officer, corporal, lieutenant, and captain, and also he was the acting chief of the Princeton Township Police Department, the former Princeton Township Police Department, right before the time of consolidation. And he played a really instrumental role in the successful merger of the borough and township police departments. He was promoted to captain in February 2019, and he's been instrumental, has played a major role in a lot of the reforms and initiatives that the department has taken over the years. And we're very pleased to promote him tonight to chief, and look forward to working with him more closely. For me till the end of the year, and everybody else for a little longer than that. So before formally taking up the resolution, I did want to give Captain Morgan an opportunity to talk to us about his vision for the department, and wanted to hand it over to him.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate this opportunity. First, though, the police department, I have to say, has benefited over the years from the outstanding leadership from Chief Sutter. He brought this department through consolidation. He unified two organizations and really provided the direction and the guidance during his tenure as chief, and really created what is now our current approach to policing in Princeton. And as you mentioned, as everyone knows, that he did retire today. It was his last day as a police officer. It was a pretty emotional day for everyone here. His family came in, and it was a bit of a tough day for a lot of people. But as a department, we just wanted to thank him again for his service and his commitment to the department, and what he's done for this police department as a whole, and for us individually. And we wish him nothing but the best in the future. And we made him promise that he won't be a stranger to us. The Princeton Police Department over the years has established itself as a professional organization committed to providing high quality police service while engaging with our community members. The department has been at the forefront of policing, adopting the recommendations of the 21st century policing model, being transparent with our community, and listening to the thoughts and suggestions of our residents. We've developed a large platform of social media that adds to our communication. We've created several supervisory review processes within the organization to ensure professionalism and fairness. And through the hard work and vision of all the members of our department, we've made ourselves to what I believe is one of the best police departments in the state of New Jersey. And I think we serve as a role model to a lot of other police departments. This philosophy and this approach to policing in Princeton will remain the same as we advance into a new era. But as we look forward, there are several areas that we must address in order to continue to police at a high level, as well as new ideas to allow us to grow and further develop. First, over the past few months, we've had several officers retire from the department. With those retirements, we've lost a tremendous amount of experience in a short amount of time, as well as supervision within our rank structure. It's imperative for us as an organization to fill these vacant supervisory positions. As a department, we must begin the process of mentoring our newly promoted officers. Therefore, we'll be developing a formalized mentoring program for all ranks within the organization. This will ensure that the experiences and the job knowledge will be handed down from generation to generation within the police department in a more effective manner. Additionally, the promotions are essential to ensure that the department has the necessary leadership and supervision to educate and train our younger officers. So tonight we are presenting several officers for promotion who are ready for the next step and challenges in their career and who will do an excellent job for us. With these retirements and with the promotions of those that will fill the vacant supervisory positions, we become short-staffed at the patrol officer level. Additionally, in 2021, we have 4 officers who are eligible for retirement. In 2022, we have another 2 officers who will be eligible for retirement. So it's important for us to start to begin to fill these positions and ensure that we bring diversity, continue to bring diversity in our recruitment process in order to mirror the demographics of the town. The hiring process, as I'm sure a lot of you already know, includes a written test, several interviews, psychological exam, medical exam, a background investigation, and obviously final approval. Once hired and trained in the police academy, we then require a minimum of 3-month training program within the organization. So in the end, the entire process takes 1 year to complete. So based on our retirement numbers and in anticipation of our upcoming retirements, we would like to start the recruitment process right away. In the next few days, we'll be implementing our body-worn cameras. We received them several weeks ago, and we've been going through the installation process. Every officer in the police department is going to be issued a body-worn camera. They're also going to receive training on how to properly operate and care for the device, as well as policy training on the requirements of when to use the camera. The implementation of the body-worn camera is something that's been promoted in the 21st century policing model, and it's been embraced by the men and women of the police department. But in my opinion, it's not just enough to have the body-worn cameras. In policy, we've required that there will be several levels of supervisor reviews that will take place. For example, it'll be mandatory for all use of force incidents for the video on the camera to be reviewed. These reviews will start at the first line supervisor, progress to command staff personnel, internal affairs, and ultimately the chief of police. Additionally, we mandate that our supervisors conduct random reviews of our officers' video to ensure professionalism and proper policing is occurring in our community. The cameras, we believe, are part of the department's commitment to being transparent with our community. In the next few months, we'll be implementing implicit bias training into our training program. The state will be mandating that this training to take place sometime in the future. However, we feel it's important for us to develop and distribute this training to our personnel sooner rather than later. Additionally, with our annual diversity training, we'll be reaching out to various community partners for input. I feel it's important when you provide training about diversity in your community that you incorporate the ideas, the beliefs, and feelings from the residents within your community. Our hope is that our community partners will be able to sit down with us and either provide input into our training program or, if able to, actually provide a portion of the training themselves. It's a new idea. I don't think any other department that I'm aware of does this, but it's something I think once it's developed, it's going to be extremely beneficial to the men and women of the organization as well as the community. We'll continue to analyze our training in regards to topics that we may need to educate our officers on. It may be dictated by national events, and we'll also continue to review the delivery methods of our training. Continuing education within the organization is vital, and it's something that it's going to be a continued focus as we go forward. Prior to the pandemic, the department was very active in the community, but obviously with everything that has changed, it's not been able to be so interactive as we have in the past. I believe that these face-to-face conversations and interactions are critical to the success and developing trust within the community. We need to ensure that the community has access to our officers to be able to express themselves and to be able to have discussions. The type of relationship with residents is what's going to allow us to continue to develop and grow as a police department. So hopefully in the near future, this pandemic will begin to improve and we can get back to what was our normal in regards to community engagement. When it does, we will be starting our first civilian academy. We will invite members from the public to attend an educational course taught by our officers. It will be about the responsibilities and the day-to-day operations of the police department. I anticipate it to be a very informative course with interaction and discussion about policing and the community itself. As the program develops and we begin to advertise, and we're going to solicit input about some topics that the community would like to learn about and be able to further discuss. Additionally, we have a ride-along program where Princeton residents can request to ride in a police car with an officer for a portion of their shift and really experience about as close as you can get to the job of a police officer. It offers a great opportunity for one-on-one conversations where, again, the community member and the officer have a chance to better understand one another and their experiences. And again, as hopefully the pandemic begins to improve, we're going to be promoting that program as well. We'll be taking all of these ideas and others and developing them into an internal strategic plan. It's going to outline the responsibilities of each of these goals and these ideas, and it'll be disseminated to the officer that's in charge of that piece of the program. The strategic plan will then also be disseminated to everyone within the police department so that everyone in the police department has a clear map and direction of where the police department is heading. In conclusion, I would say that the police department is very healthy. It's healthy in its approach to policing, in our willingness to listen to our community and self-analyze. We want to be the best that we can be and serve the community in the most positive and effective way that we can. We're committed to working with others, either within the municipal government or the community, and we will always look to progress and develop ourselves. I'm incredibly proud of this organization. We have some of the best men and women in law enforcement in this police department. Each of them bring their own unique life experiences and beliefs, but we all have one thing in common. It's that we want to help those around us and better serve our community. So I'm looking forward to seeing the department to continue to grow and progress as we move into this new era, where we will remain a progressive police department that will continue to serve as a model for others. I appreciate the opportunity, and I look forward to working alongside each of you in the future.
Great, thank you so much. Councilman and Police Commissioner Fraga.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'll reserve, I did have some other comments to make, but I'll reserve them until after the promotions. But I just thank you, Captain Morgan, for your presentation. I wanted to follow up on a couple of things that you mentioned. One, on the police recruitment. The last time that I participated in one as part of the Public Safety Committee, I became aware that it was an issue for some individuals who would have made, who could have made great members of our, great additions, members to our department. But there was a barrier in that they were not able to get past the written test. I understand that there is a workshop or program that's available for individuals that they pay for to prep for the written test. And it can be up to $1,000 or more. I recall having the conversation with Chief Sutter that he believed that there may be scholarship monies available that we could tap into when we're recruiting. So to ensure that we are recruiting diverse recruits that would reflect our community. But if there's barriers, if there's any way that we can explore that and make scholarships available, if they're to recruits in order to remove that barrier. Because I understood that was a challenge for some individuals who may have made great recruits, but they couldn't get past the written test. And it was, I believe, a couple of them, I heard it was the math that was in the test. The other one that I wanted to mention is I'm really happy to hear that you may be moving forward with a civilian police academy. Mm-hmm. I actually graduated from one in another city that as part of a Human Rights Commission. And And then that one, the police academy was made available to members of the Human Services Commission who served on the Police and Community Relations Committee. And so I had the idea that if we could consider making, when we do have this in place, making it available to members of the Civil Rights Commission.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we go ahead and we kind of finalize how that program will work, I think it's something that we'll obviously further discuss at Public Safety. And we are open to all and any ideas. The foundation of it for me is conversation, a bit of education on both sides for the community, how the police department operates, what our responsibilities are, but also for us to learn from the community and better understand maybe what some of their concerns are or what their perceptions are. So the idea of a civilian academy, maybe the name isn't the best, but it's going to be more of a dialogue and an education back and forth between the community and the police department.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad it's moving forward.
Great.
Council President Coe.
Thanks. Chief Morgan, sounds like you've got some fantastic planning going on, long-range planning for the department. On a couple of items you referenced, hopefully when we get back to normal after COVID is over, and the questions that Ms. Niedergang had before about traffic enforcement and the need to have scaled that back for the safety of the officers. I'm just curious if you've been creating strategic plans for how to come out, how to transition from the more restricted COVID operations back to normal operations.
We've had those discussions at the command level, and some of it's already been implemented. There was a time where our schedule was very different than what it is now and what it typically is, out of the concern of the pandemic and going through the police department. We had to modify schedules. So we've, in a way, started to implement that plan of coming back out of it. You could almost say that was like the phase one portion of the plan. A lot of it is going to be dictated on where we are with the spreading of the virus. As it gets better and things start to open up within the state and within Princeton, we're obviously going to see more traffic in town, pedestrian and vehicle traffic, and a lot of that's going to dictate how then we progress and get back to our normal policing.
Ms. Niedergang.
Thank you so much for sharing your vision with us. And I'm going to jump the gun a little bit again and say, Chief Morgan, really appreciate that. And we've already had a chance to work together a little bit, and I'm looking forward to continuing that. I feel that there is one thing, kind of maybe the elephant in the room, that I feel like I can't quite let lie. And that is really the issue of what types of things the police department does that might be more effectively and efficiently done by other people. And I know we're going to talk with our new director of emergency services about possibly having a second responder program or something like that, that would take the place of an armed police officer, supplement an armed police officer. But I want to just urge you, and you're probably already doing this, but I didn't hear you mention it too, as you go forward and as you create, recruit, and move forward, that is something that's always in the front of your mind, that we've heard from many people who are very passionate about shifting resources, towards mental health professionals, towards social workers, towards people for whom this is their training. I mean, I know that the police do the best job they can, but they haven't gone through 2 or 4 or 5 years of training in mental health. They're kind of more Jack and Jills of all trades, so many different things that they're called upon to do. So I just want to encourage you to, just be sure that that's always something that's in the front of your mind as you think about things that police are doing now, that maybe some of those responsibilities could be shifted, making, I think, your lives better and providing better quality services to our residents?
Sure, and I could say that those conversations have already started. And I've expressed in those conversations that the police department is open to any and all ideas. If there's something or someone or some group that can do something better for the community than the police department, by all means, we will be there to support that idea, support those people as best we can. I know that second responder program is something that's been discussed, and I know it's still being explored, and we're actually part of those conversations.
Thanks. I have a question. Just, it's been I think it's been a challenging time for policing across the country. And I know in the past, because of the reputation you've talked about with the Princeton Police Department, when we have jobs available and we go out for recruitment, we'll sometimes get 800 applications because it's, I think, just the reputation of the department. And, we get amazing people applying too. We've been extremely lucky. What's your strategy for this next round of recruitment, given that, I don't know, from everything I read, you have to wonder, it's like, who's going to be excited to sign up to be a police officer right now? How do we get the right people who are going to be the right fit for the department? And, I'm assuming it's probably going to be more challenging than it has been in past years.
Yeah, I certainly understand that concern. And you're right, Mayor. In the past, we've had anywhere between 600 to 800 applicants to start with. That's unheard of. There's nobody in the immediate area or really in the state that sees numbers like that. And I would agree with you. It's our reputation. We're viewed as a professional organization that's committed to serving the community. And I think what you see is a lot of young people that want to come into this profession, want to be a part of that type of police department, and want to be able to police the community that way, where we engage the community. We do take measures to help promote the diversity within our applicant pool, as well as the size of the applicant pool. For one, we don't require as an applicant that you already be a certified police officer. We will send you to the police academy. Additionally, some police departments will use their recruitment process to either make money by charging, or by limiting the amount of people that actually may apply by setting it at such a high level to reduce the number of applicants. We've never done that. We've always tried to keep the cost to an absolute minimum, to even just cover the little overhead that you may have with using some outside agencies for testing purposes. And I understand your concern, but I think you also have a lot of people who are eager to make change, to be part of a great organization. And I believe that when this is your calling to be a police officer and to want to help people, nothing's going to stop you. And I think those are the type of people that we would want to recruit here in Princeton. So even if our numbers aren't 600 to 800, I still think we're going to get high quality people that would be great police officers in Princeton.
I was muted. Thank you. Are there any other questions for Captain Morgan? Okay, so with that then, is there a motion to put 2309 on the table, resolution approving police promotions for 2020? Moved by Ms. Fraga, seconded by Ms. Pearl-Lambros. Is there any discussion on this? Or I don't know if Captain Morgan, too, you wanted to say anything about the, I know we're going to have, I mean, I should mention to everybody too, normally we'd have a little bit more of a formal process here. It's hard to do much pomp and circumstance over Zoom. But I don't know if you want to say anything about this group of officers, in addition to yourself, that are in this resolution being promoted tonight.
Yeah, so I would say that each of these officers have had outstanding careers. They've proven themselves to be leaders within the organization, and they've really committed themselves to the department and serving the Princeton community. I can't express enough just how proud I am of each officer that's being promoted tonight. And I have nothing but the utmost confidence in each of them. And I know they're all watching eagerly tonight. So they're hopeful and anxious for this to go through, but they know this. And just to let everyone know, we are going to be doing a piecemeal of a ceremony so that each of our officers get their due recognition. And we'll be videoing, we'll be using the talents of Fred Williams, and we'll be videoing different parts of the segments individually, and we'll bring it together. And it's something that I think everyone's going to be able to appreciate and take back with them and show some of their family and their loved ones. And again, I know they're all watching, so congratulations to everyone that's watching right now.
Yeah, I want to extend my congratulations too. And I think John Bucari, is he still? I see his name. I don't know if he's
there. He is.
Yeah. Okay. I want to congratulate John too. So John's being promoted tonight in this resolution from lieutenant to captain, and a lot of people might know Lieutenant Bucari is he was the first head of the Safe Neighborhoods Unit in the Consolidated Municipality, and really helped to set that program up for tremendous success. And so you're a well-known face in the community, and I'm sure a lot of people join with me in just congratulating you for your promotion tonight too.
And Mayor Lambert, I have prepared some brief remarks, but I don't know if to wait until after we vote on it, or if
you can do it now if you'd like.
Okay. Yes. So this is and I'm jumping the gun. That's why I said I didn't know whether I should wait, to Chief Morgan and to Captain Bucari. I want to congratulate you on your new roles. Your promotions are an indication of what years and years of hard work and commitment can lead to. I understand that to reach this moment, it took a lot of devotion, a lot of hard work, constant learning, and constant improving. You are being promoted into a position of greater responsibility and greater impact. At our last council meeting, we already acknowledged that Chief Sutter has left behind a great legacy. And I want to say that I think you're being promoted at a moment where this department has the opportunity to get better and stronger. There are new ideas, new approaches to pioneer, and I think we've only just begun to find out just what more this department can do to protect and serve our community, and also to build closer relationships with people in every neighborhood. I also want to mention and congratulate Lieutenant Solovey. I hope I'm pronouncing everyone's names right. Sergeant Martinez, Sergeant Craven, Corporal Navas, and Corporal Humble. I'm looking forward to working with all of you. I want to congratulate all of you and to thank you for what you do, and also thank your families for their support they provide to you in order for you to be able to do your work. I want to thank you for your leadership that you're providing. And lastly, I want to emphasize just how much we appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for those remarks. Thank you so much.
Thanks. And with that, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Congratulations. And yeah.
Thank you so much, Mayor.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Mayor Lambert?
Yes.
I just want to mention that there was a correspondence also listed on the agenda for this evening. before you?
Yeah, so we had moved that to Saturday's meeting on
Okay.
Franklin. Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, sure. Sorry about that. Okay, well, thanks and have a good night. You're welcome to stay,
Thank you.
but
Thanks, Mayor. Have a good night.
you don't
Thank you
have to
so
if you don't
much.
want to.
Good night.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Good night.
Congratulations.
Okay, so just I wanted to see if we could amend the agenda tonight and move up resolution 2320 on the consolidated plan for the community development block grant program. Is there a motion to amend the agenda to take up
So
that
moved.
resolution next? Moved by Mr. Cohen, seconded by Ms. Lambros. All in favor of amending the agenda?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we will take up 2320 next, resolution approving fiscal year 2020 to 2024 consolidated plan and fiscal year 2020 annual action plan for the Community Development Block Grant Program. And just to get it on the table, is there a motion to approve? Moved by Ms. Fraga, seconded by Ms. Sachs. And I'd like to welcome, oh, there you are. Hi, Mark. Mark Leckington with Leckington Advisors, who's been the consultant to help walk us through this fairly complicated process, and also Maureen Fullaway, who is the head of our affordable housing department here in Princeton. And I wanted to turn it over to you, Mark. Were you interested in sharing your screen at all, or are you
Most
just going to
definitely.
walk us through? Okay. I'm not
Um,
able to do that, but maybe Mark DeShield can help you, or Don, can somebody
You
help?
should be able to. You should be
I
able
think,
to.
yeah,
share
it looks like a,
You can do it? Okay, great.
um,
And just, there you go.
excellent. Well, thank you. I'm glad I was I was able to watch the last few minutes of the meeting. That was quite touching. So it was very nice. But I'm here to talk to you about the Community Development Block Grant Program. This is a fantastic opportunity for the municipality. The basic idea behind this is that the municipality is now an entitlement community, and it has reached a level of population that makes it a principal city in HUD's eyes and of a metropolitan statistic area, and that means that you have access to the entitlement grant programs, and there's only one at this point that the municipality is eligible for, and it's the Community Development Block Grant Program. So this is something that basically became available because of the merger. It elevated the total population in HUD's formula and elevated to the point of becoming eligible. There's some basic concepts that are important to understand about the program, that it's really focused on providing decent housing in a suitable living environment and expanding economic opportunities for people that are principally low and moderate income. This means that 51% of all the beneficiaries of any projects that we fund need to be below 80% of area median income by household size. And that is illustrated here on this chart that I put together. And the important tier that we're looking at is the bottom tier. So this is each one of these are a percentage of area median income, and the columns are household size. So a household size of 4, the income limit to participate or to receive assistance from the program is $78,500. And it, as you can see, it goes down as the household size goes up. This is very similar to the income restrictions that are used for your COA and your state-based affordable housing. The figures are actually very, very close to the state-based affordable housing figures, usually just a few $100s off each year, but they are different. The money that we're talking about is odd, you joined at a good time because there is, in addition to the entitlement funds, which is constitutes about $200,000 or $250,000, $242 to be exact. There's also money that's been made available under the CARES Act in 2 different allocations. The second allocation was literally just made available on September 11th, and which gave the town another $190,000 in addition to the 142 that was awarded earlier in the summer. And these funds are specifically limited to projects that prepare, prevent, or respond to the coronavirus. That does not mean that these are the only funds you can spend on that, but it comes as a restriction on these particular funds. Entitlement funds could also be spent on COVID projects, but these other two tranches of funds, it's a requirement that 100% of them be spent on COVID projects. Any of the projects that we fund are, I mentioned earlier that they need to primarily benefit low and moderate income people. There's also a couple of other ways in which a project could be funded, and it could be, you can prevent or eliminate a slum or blight, and then you can also address a particular urgent need. And for the first time in the 40-year history of the program, HUD has retooled what constitutes urgent need to bring it into alignment with some of the challenges that towns and counties and states are facing from COVID-19. So there are some changes that have been made to make it a little bit more flexible and easier to use to address those pressing emergency based issues. The process for applying for these funds is represented by the circle here, and as you can see in the center of it, citizen participation and consultation is a commonality among each of these steps. And as we sit here right now, we are in we're at the 6 o'clock position. We started at the 12 o'clock position earlier this summer, where we went through multiple exercises to determine needs, set priorities, analyze the resources, and then set goals for how we're going to achieve the needs and priorities that we set. Our next step will be to submit the consolidated plan and to begin administering programs. The consolidated plan is a 5-year plan that is responsible for setting goals and priorities for between now and the 2024 program year. And in the intervening years, the municipality is going to be responsible for establishing an action plan, which is sort of a more condensed version of the consolidated plan, and it's more focused on the individual activities. Those individual activities that are being funded need to be held back up to the consolidated plan to make sure that they are in parity and in alignment with the goals and priorities that were set in that consolidated plan. And so that's the purpose of the exercise that's gone on over the summer, is to basically set the tone for how this program is going to roll out over the next 5 years. All of these documents are editable and updatable, so if things happen to change or priorities change, we can go back and amend the plan and adjust the priorities. A little bit about what's happened over the last couple of months. Wanted to share that with you. We had a focus group on July 14th. We had nonprofits, elected officials, municipal officials, members of the public, and folks from the Housing Authority joined us. And that spawned a number of one-on-one conversations where we followed up directly with them with the idea of trying to suss out where the needs are in affordable housing and public service and infrastructure, and how can we align the CDBG program to have a meaningful impact on those things. Because as you can imagine, $250,000 isn't necessarily going to go a very long way on a let's say, for instance, if you were to build a new library, that is not necessarily something that's going to be significant to the budget. So it's in addition to looking at the needs and priorities of the town, it's also attempting to identify ways in which the program can be impactful. So through that exercise, we came up with a draft set of projects that were then made part of the consolidated plan, and we'll talk about those in a couple of moments. In addition to the focus groups, we had 2 public hearings. We had one last night and one earlier in August. I am happy to tell you that, and it's probably not surprising to anybody on this call, that they were very well attended. There was a lot of discussion. They were probably the most well attended public hearings I've done for this in my, well, there's a couple that in a very long time. So certainly in the COVID area, you set the record for the most amount of participation. So something to be proud of. And then we drafted this consolidated plan, and we've made it available starting last week. And the resolution that is in front of you tonight will permit the mayor, will approve the plan and permit the mayor to submit it and sign any necessary documents to facilitate the grant agreements with HUD. We also, the staff were very helpful in getting a web page created for the program where this draft plan lives and where other documents will be updated regularly and made available for the public review. The plan itself came up with 5 priority needs. And these were, again, came out of the focus groups, the public hearings, and a lot of discussion and in between. The very first one was the respond to the economic impacts of COVID-19. Second one being maintain and create affordable housing. This really is an attempt to address some of the priorities that came out of your housing element and fair share plan. In fact, we adopted some of the goals of that fair share plan directly into the consolidated plan where they made sense, where the CDBG program could be used as eligible activities to further some of those goals. Enhancing public services was also identified as a priority need. These are things like providing rental assistance, daycare, after school programs, summer camps, and the other types of direct service to individuals and families. Another priority need that came out of it, and this addresses, this is in support of the resolution that the municipality passed recently, was to address the structural systematic racism, and so we're looking for ways that projects can address this priority need. The last one is a little bit more narrow and focused than the others, but it's to provide students and senior citizens that are of low and moderate income with Wi-Fi access, also related to COVID-19, to help them thrive in this distance learning environment, and of course help seniors access their medical care that may be challenging to them right now without proper Wi-Fi. And the projects that were born from these goals are up on the screen. I apologize for the significant amount of text, but these are basically pulled directly out of the plan. It is through discussions and all the focus groups, we've come up with a series of a couple of projects that are addressing these goals. The first one being emergency housing expense assistance program. We've identified $124,000 from the CDBG entitlement funds and another $195,000 from the COVID funding to create a program that will serve roughly, we're estimating that this is on the low side, 36 low and moderate income households around the municipality with rental assistance, and in some cases the eligible activity would also be utility assistance. The estimate that we used for this, I learned yesterday, was for costing this out was a little bit on the high side. So we're actually thinking that this 36 might be a little bit low. The number might be more like 45, 48, somewhere in there, that we will be able to assist with this program. The other project that came out of it was directly in line with one of the goals, and this is internet access for students and seniors. We have a budget of $72,000 in this activity. While we don't have a clear path to a technological solution and how this might roll out, some very rough estimates suggest that we should be able to provide as many as 400 households with Wi-Fi access with this budget. And then the last activity is some assistance to the Public Housing Authority. This is this initially came out of the need to replace some boilers on Clay Street that are getting very close to the end of their useful life, if not exceeding it. And so this was a conversation that started based on that need. There may be other capital improvements in the Housing Authority that may rise up to a greater impact on health and safety. So the Housing Authority is not 100% certain that these funds will go to the boilers. There's a couple of water intrusion issues in some of the units that may be creating some air quality issues for residents, and they're actively trying to determine the extent of those problems and what those costs might look like. So there's a possibility that these funds would get repurposed there. But those are the 3 projects that would spend down that roughly $500,000 that we have available to us. So that's the end of my presentation on the consolidated plan. I'd be happy to answer any questions that anybody might have about how implementation and administration might work, or any other issues related to the program.
Mark, do you mind just stopping sharing your screen, because then I can see everybody? It's hard to.
Oh, sure, of course. Very good.
Thanks. Ms. Fraga, do you want to start?
Yes, I just had a question because, understanding that the funds are limited, I was wondering if we're prevented from perhaps collaborating with other entities to perhaps share services. Or let's say, for example, the Wi-Fi, if we already know that the school district is trying to provide the same access, and if they have funds available, is this something that we could perhaps combine funds to expand our reach of who we're providing assistance to?
That's a great question. The CDBG program in general does not play well with other funding sources, mostly because it brings its own set of regulations that are relatively unique. And it's sometimes problematic to join a more free funding source that maybe it's a nonprofit or a private donation that doesn't have the regulatory strings attached to it. Once you introduce CDBG dollars, the CDBG program wants the whole thing to be brought up to the CDBG standard. So while there's certainly an opportunity for us to partner and to be in a situation where maybe we could be a net to catch any cases that are not able to be addressed by the school district. Certainly the seniors are not, I assume, are not part of that project. And there may be, in the conversations that we've had with the folks that are working on that, it sounds as though that there are going to be people that will not be able to be served because of some account issues with Comcast or Xfinity, one of the providers, and I think somebody that's been working more closely on that could fill in any of the gaps. But it's our understanding that there are going to be people that will not be able to be served by that funding source, and so this could be a way in which to capture those. To help those people that aren't able to be served, and if there's anything left over, we can certainly repurpose it with a very quick revision to the annual action plan to get it repurposed into, say, other rental assistance or something else that might be pressing.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Cohen, and then Ms. Niedergang.
Yeah, I was curious if with the housing expense assistance that we've been doing in town prior to this, there's been a process of negotiation with landlords to get them to agree to accept half rent and, as payment in full to help the dollars stretch farther. Is something like that permissible under the CDBG system?
There's the easiest way to answer that question is to tell you that there is no regulation that prohibits it. There is no requirement that we pay 100% of the rent, and there is nothing that says that we cannot renegotiate the debt down. It is a requirement that we pay directly to the landlord, so it gives us that requirement gives us an opportunity to communicate and have that conversation. So I think I don't know of any problem with that at all in the regulations. Having said that, a lot of the regulations that have been around for 40 plus years under this program are being retooled and revised to make them a little bit more COVID friendly. So, and we are expecting some new guidance specifically on rental assistance and homelessness prevention literally in the coming days. And so I say that with knowing what I know right now. We may get guidance that either makes it more restrictive or makes it less restrictive. It's very difficult to tell which direction things may go. But I'm hopeful that using what we've learned so far about other guidance that's come out, that we will see flexibility increase and our ability to implement it increase. So.
I just have some concern with the landlord in the White House. It might go the other direction.
He's a tenant as far as I'm concerned.
Well, He's both right now.
Public housing tenant.
Ms.
Thank-
Niedergang, you want to try to follow that?
I really don't, but I'm going to actually duck the whole thing and follow up on Councilwoman Fraga's question. I was really thrilled to see that internet access for seniors as well as students was on the list, and also being aware of the generosity of a donor who's providing that for many school children. So that's kind of an aside. My question is, could internet access be construed as the purchase of devices? Because there's two parts here. You need the service, but you also need something to access the service on. But most of the things that, I mean, I guess it could pay for replacing a boiler. Could it pay for providing a computer or a tablet or something like that? Or would it only be services?
The CDBG program has got a very hard line on prohibiting the purchase of what it considers to be equipment.
Okay.
And equipment to HUD is basically anything that like either plugs in the wall or moves that isn't bolted down. Once you bolt to the floor, cemented in the floor,
So the boiler is fine, right?
yes, the boiler's
Right.
okay, yeah. But to the extent that you can move it is basically the very quick layman's rule of thumb. It starts to get into that equipment situation and
Okay.
and gets prohibited. However, I want to say this: that guidance continues to come out. We may see some guidance that makes something like this allowable. And the reason why I say that is that they did offer some latitude on equipment that's related to any sort of medical initiative in response to COVID. So so respirators and basically all of the things that would be necessary to deal with a COVID patient have all been green lighted and moved over into the eligibility side. So I would hope to think that we might see other equipment that's specifically responding to COVID may in the future get approved, but as I sit here right now, we don't have that approval.
Okay. Thank you. That's helpful.
You're welcome.
Oops, I muted myself by accident. Can you talk a little bit about the reporting requirements? So, one thing in sort of thinking about how to move forward, especially with the rental assistance piece of this, is to have a contract with a local nonprofit that would help administer the program. And I imagine there's paperwork and contracts involved in us reporting who the nonprofit is and qualifying them. But what about the nonprofit's responsibility for reporting, given that they're the ultimate recipient of the money?
Yeah, that's a great question. The activity that we're talking about, this rental assistance activity, is on the continuum of complexity of eligibility documentation. This is on this is almost a 1 on a scale of 1 to 10. This is the eligibility, the documentation that needs to be collected for these recipients to be, for these expenses to be considered eligible is very, very low. In fact, eligibility is simply a statement from the family, from the tenant, that says, this is my name, my address, my household size, and my income. And then there's a couple of questions about race and ethnicity, and a question that asks them to attest to the fact that COVID-19 caused the economic instability in their household. And with a signature, that is the extent of the document. Oh, and there's one other thing. They do need to submit a copy of a valid lease. That is the other requirement. And if they're looking for utility expenses, that they need to provide documentation of that. But that's literally the extent of the eligibility for a single case. And so if you've ever seen one of Maureen's eligibility packages for a rehabilitation loan, or someone that's buying a house or renting an affordable unit, her files, Maureen, is it safe to say there are 100 pages on average?
Yeah, there's a lot of documentation, 3 years worth of income tax and your last 4 pay stubs, and there's a lot of stuff, 6 months of checking account statements. So this will be much more streamlined, much easier to do.
In fact, we've even seen some jurisdictions around the state that they've been able to collect this data through a Google Doc or some sort of web form, which I think is a really good idea. Not only does it reduce the amount of paper that's moving around and the possibility of transmitting something, but it makes it very user friendly and makes it really easy to take that data and turn it into reports and summarize it. So there's a possibility of doing that as well. So other than just collecting that data, the nonprofit needs to track their expenses just like you would expect with any other grant program, or there's nothing unique there about them keeping track of each time they write a check or incur an expense, and then packaging those things up and submitting them along with the accomplishment data, like how many people have been served, what are their race and ethnicity. The reporting is generally very simple for a project like this. You're muted.
Keep doing that. One of the things that has come up is, a lot of the people who we might want to help through this program are not like the only person on the lease. So if you have a group of people who are renting an apartment and the person qualifying is not the named person on the lease, have you seen other communities? I can't imagine we're the only community that is in this situation. Have you seen like how other places are dealing with that and making sure that they're able to sort of bridge that? It's just like meet those pieces together where they're not quite connected in the real world.
Yeah, it's certainly, I certainly recognize it as a need, and there's Princeton brings some very unique rental struggles or rental situations that need to be able to be accommodated in the program. And I think the program can remain flexible and be able to be applied in a lot of these situations. I don't know of a real, I think they're going to have to be dealt with on a case-by-case basis. I think, in discussing this yesterday, one of the solutions might be that rather than the applicant being the second tier sort of renter, not being on the lease, maybe the applicant needs to be the person that is on the lease, and by solving that rental arrearage situation, we then have an ability to solve the second tier person's situation as well. So there's some workarounds that I think that we'll be able to use to solve these. But I do want to mention that while this money has been out and sort of hit the street over the summer, and there's a lot of towns and counties that are tooling up programs, very few of them have actually been implemented because, as I mentioned earlier, there's some guidance that we're expecting to hit the streets any day now. And the way HUD works is it doesn't matter to them when they release the guidance. If you spent the money 3 months ago and you spent it under the regulations that were approved at that time, and they release a new regulation, they're expecting you to either go back and make sure that those expenses achieve compliance with the new regulation or pay the money back. So there's a lot of organizations that are, a lot of communities that I'm working with that have rental assistance programs are basically sitting on pause right now to wait for this guidance. And of course, there's the eviction moratorium going on right now. So we've got a little bit of luxury of time, but I think the clock's going to be ticking pretty quickly. So we're really hopeful that the guidance is going to be released on housing assistance shortly, and then we'll have the benefit of being able to see how this gets played out on a larger scale, and I'm certainly be happy to share things that I learn in, we're working on a program in Hoboken right now in partnership with Hudson County, and some other projects around the state that are really on the forefront of this topic. So don't have all the answers, but I think that everything's lined up to be able to solve a lot of these situations.
That's great. And that actually cues up another question I had, which is like, when I know the guidance is obviously super important, but like when should we expect to actually have the money to spend? And then how long do we, I mean, how much time do we have to spend it? And let's say we get to the end of the period and we haven't spent every penny, does that then roll over or do we lose it?
Okay, so we have to talk about this in two different categories. Let's talk about the COVID funds. The COVID funds are completely unique with the way in which the timeline rolls out for this. They're, as crazy as this sounds, you have 6 years to spend the COVID funding. According to the guidance that came out in August, you have to spend 80% of it by year 3, by the end of year 3, and then you have the other 3 years to spend the remaining 20% for, I don't know how that math works, but that's exactly the guidance that's been available on the deadline for spending those funds. So this is not like those other funds that you hear about that have to be spent before the end of the year, the end of this year. The consolidated plan that we're submitting has established a program year for the municipality of starting on October 1st and concluding exactly 1 year later at the end of September. So that will always be your sort of your program year start and end date. The entitlement funds, which is the $242,000 that you got this year and will become the basis for awards in out years, those funds are ideally spent within the program year, within that 12-month period. But there is a lot of latitude for situations where you run into an environmental issue that may have slowed a project down, or you have something that delayed the implementation of a project. The HUD does give you a lot of latitude there. However, they do a test every year called the timeliness test, and at the point of that timeliness test, you're not supposed to be sitting on more than 1.5 years worth of your allocation. So at no point, and that timeliness test won't be done until next spring for Princeton. So so again, at no point, you always want to be below that 1.5 threshold, and as long as you are, the HUD is fine with you having money roll over, spill over into the next program year.
So as soon as we submit, like we're going to vote on this tonight, it'll get sent in probably next few days, and then we should expect a check for the whole amount from HUD within.
I wish. No.
How does that work?
So what you will get is a grant agreement,
Okay.
and that's and you will get that probably within, I'd like to say 2 weeks, maybe 3, which is really aggressive for HUD. That's traditionally not traditionally does not move that quickly. It's usually a 45-day affair, and so these 2 weeks that we've been seeing around the state is really aggressive. So you'll get a grant agreement in 2 weeks, sign that, you'll submit it back, and then once HUD gets it and processes it, they will then push the money into a computer system that is used to manage the program. It's the same computer system where the consolidated plan lives, where all the action plans will live, where all the reporting will be done. It's a sort of a single one-stop shopping for the program. And so as the organizations or the municipality spends funds, it will then apply to have them reimbursed by the program. There's some situations where you can draw the money in advance of writing the check. It's not a practice that a lot of municipalities and counties use because of the some variables that may happen before you get the final approval of paying it. So, but it is possible. So if you have a project that's a really large expense, and it's not something that you want to hit the general ledger, you can ask for the money in advance, but a check has to be issued for those funds within 3 days. So that's the trick there. And there's also an opportunity for the program, like if under this rental assistance scenario that we're talking about, we would partner with an organization in the community to run the program. We could front money to them, because as you could probably imagine, cash flow is going to be a major challenge with a program like that. There's likely to be a large number of people applying. We could be talking about $100,000 in checks written within a very short amount of time. So in situations like that, we could front money to the organization and have them draw against it as like a little retainer, and then we could refill the retainer until they start to spend down all the funds.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor?
Yes.
I just wanted to explain to council, as part of our grant system, we will pay for, once we get the grant agreement, we will allow for the expenditures to occur at that time and then seek reimbursement. So it will not delay in terms of the program. We do have enough funds to fund the program. So once we get the approval and the award letter, we can begin the process of expenditures. We'll then do the reimbursements after the fact.
Okay, great. Thank you. Are there any other questions for Mark? Yeah, Ms. Niedergang?
I just want to follow up on that very concerning kind of retroactive change in regulations. How cautious should we be? I mean, if we spend 250,000 and then there's a change in a regulation and we only get reimbursed for 50, I mean, you can create all different kinds of scenarios, but how do you, that's a very scary thing to hear, that they can change the rules on us at any time. And how do you advise dealing with that?
Yeah, I apologize for making it seem so catastrophic and dystopian almost, but here's the good news. I've never had to have this conversation up until now.
Okay.
The rules of the program have been like virtually rock solid since 1974 when this program rolled out. There's been very little updates and changes, little minor things and tweaks with technology and things like that. We went from carbon copies to fax machines to and now we're online. So there's been some tweaks there, but there's rarely ever any large scale changes to eligibility of programs, and it's only because of COVID that we have seen probably a dozen different waivers and memos that have rolled out of HUD to help municipalities to tweak programs. And my biggest concern about the rental assistance program is that the current administration is not typically sided well on the underserved and the families
Especially
among us.
undocumented people.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. Thank you. So I just think that once the guidance does come out, that will be the end of it. And again, it is due any day, and I'll certainly update everybody on any impacts that may have to our plans. I'm hopeful that all of the impacts that I'm going to share are going to be positive and are going to be create flexibility and make it an easier program to run. Again, that has been the theme to date. But again, we are where we are with.
So just to confirm, I must have misunderstood your initial comment. So it's not like this guidance is going to come out and it's not likely that 2 months later they'll come out with a completely different guidance that will cause us to then owe them a large part of the money back.
Yeah, I apologize for making it sound that way.
I apologize for misunderstanding it that way.
No, this is, once the guidance comes out, we do not expect to see any changes. These are heavily vetted. It's literally an attorney review right now. That's how far along it is, this guidance. So as far as
your concern is just don't spend the money before the guidance goes out, not concern for spending the money once the guidance has come out. Okay.
Right. And my other concern is if we design a program and to the finer details of a program based on the guidance that's out right now, and they give us something that opens it up and makes it easier for us to manage, it may require us to waste a little bit of time in retooling the program. So that's one of the main reasons why a lot of the other agencies and municipalities and counties are been holding off a little bit with rolling out their programs, just because they think that there might be some benefits to the guidance that will lessen paperwork and make it a little bit more efficient to run.
Thank you. Very helpful.
Great, thank you. There is somebody on the tuning in who'd like to make a comment. So wanted to let Ali Mukhtar ask a question.
Yeah, I just had a general point about the way in which we process information in Princeton. I found it kind of concerning that in the report, the 5-year plan, that there is no data for like the communities of Black and brown people and working class people here. I know that the borough and the town merged, but I would almost think that we can assess our own needs better than that. And I'm kind of I just kind of want to put that on alert for everybody that why are we necessarily relying on the census data to assess our own needs? Because it feels like that might be a deterrent to the way that we determine this money and how it's used. I know this is not something that we can figure out right now, but it feels like we should be in control of our own data and decisions. And I kind of want to just put that out there. Thank you guys. And thank you, Mark, so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thanks. And I'll just add to that, that the Human Services Department right now is conducting a community needs assessment that should be ready, I think, when you all are putting together the second year plan on this. And I imagine is going to be pretty key to identifying some of the core needs. But you know, again, just to reiterate Mark's earlier point, it's not, I think it needs to be the right kind of project. Some of the needs that we identify might be things that require significantly more investment to make a dent on. So it's, you know, I think certainly right now, the rental needs, I think everybody on this call can agree are like, those are core, you know, pressing needs, especially because of COVID. And, you know, certainly the housing authority, their sort of infrastructure needs are also super important. And I think we've been hearing for a long time about the need for Wi-Fi, especially during this time when people are disconnected. I'm not disagreeing with you that there aren't going to be, I think we could probably, I'm sure during this process too, there was a whole long list of potential needs. So it's, you know, unfortunately, I think we oftentimes have more needs than we have the money to go around, but it's a good point. And I think we are trying to be strategic about it, and we'll have some better data for the second year of this.
Yeah, if I might just add a little bit to what Ali said, put a little context around it. He's referring to some tables in the consolidated plan that are not populated with data, and those are it's largely because of the consolidation of the municipality and the township and the borough. The HUD uses the 2013 American Community Survey. While it is not the most recent survey, it is the survey that HUD used to populate the consolidated plan, the basic tables in the consolidated plan. And because the merger was timed right around that, there is no municipality of Princeton in the American Community Survey from 2013, and therefore there is most of the data that where there would normally be populated, there are blanks. And so where I could, I went in and manually updated it with 2015 American Community Survey data, but there are still gaps in it because some of the American Community Survey data is massaged by HUD into a very complex formula that generates some statistics about housing affordability. It's called the Comprehensive Housing Affordability Strategy, the CHAS, and that study that they do every few years is the basis for a lot of the data that's in the consolidated plan. And so that I don't even have the ability to generate that data because HUD does not share the methodology or any of the formulas for how that data works. So we are sort of left to our own devices in some cases to like analyze the needs. But the great thing that I was able to rely heavily on is the housing element and fair share plan really picked up a lot of slack of where we were missing data and we were missing background. So it was incredibly helpful to be able to rely on that and to feed that back into the consolidated plan where we could.
Great, thank you. Are there any other final comments or questions from council before we take a vote? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, resolution passes unanimously. Thank you so much, Mark, and we'll be seeing more of you too, I'm sure.
For sure.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you so much. Good night, everyone.
Thanks. Good night.
Thank you, Maureen.
There was a
thank you, Maureen.
There was a comment that came in about this item in the comments. I don't think it was read, from Maria Huega.
Okay, yeah, we're not, I don't see a comment.
Let me check the
It was in the
public
chat.
comments.
Yeah.
I don't see anything in the chat.
Not, yeah, it's not in the chat.
Anyway, I do see Maria has her hand up, so.
It was sent at 8:14.
I don't think we're, okay.
Maria,
Do you have it in front of you? Do you just want to read it, Maria? Mia?
oh, okay. Oh, it's really long. I'm gonna forward it to you, Liz, and you can read it. All right, fine, I'll read it.
Maybe since Maria's there, maybe she wants
Yeah,
to
that would be
speak
great.
herself.
Maria, do you want to read it?
Would you like me to
up.
bring Maria over to?
Yeah, why don't you bring her over? I mean, we've already voted on this, but
There she is.
go ahead. Yep. You have to unmute yourself and then you can make your comment.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Thank you. Basically, I was my suggestion would be I'm very supportive of the plan and the opportunity that has been given to the community for providing input into the process. But there's one element that I would like to suggest be added to the resolution or in some other way, and that is an element of public accountability and monitoring through which the community will be able to access information as to how this funding will actually be distributed within the community. And what I have in mind specifically is that to require that all nonprofit agencies that are awarded funds through this plan be required to provide regular reports, either monthly or quarterly, to the Affordable Housing Department with basic demographic data on the applicants and beneficiaries who receive assistance from these programs. This data should be reviewed and monitored by the Affordable Housing Board and be publicly available upon request. The basic demographics should include some of the data that's been mentioned by Mark, the number and size of the households, the age and income brackets, the race and ethnicity, and the type of housing, whether affordable versus market rate. And the intention would be to request data that the subgrantee would already be required to track based on the federal requirements and not to add to the administrative workload. And these comments are my own personal opinion, not those of the affordable, not that of the Affordable Housing Board in which I serve.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's a good comment. And I would anticipate that any nonprofit that we would be working with, we would have a contract with them. And that's the, the reporting or the tracking are things that could be included in that contract, and that would come back before council for approval. But it's good to have that suggestion ahead of time, so thank you for that. Okay, we're going to go back then to the top of the resolutions. 2310, resolution approving award of contract for extraordinary and unspecifiable services to White Buffalo Incorporated for specialized deer management services 2020 to 2021. And why don't we take it together with the next one, 2311, resolution endorsing application for designation of a special deer management area and application for community-based deer management plan for 2020-2021. Is there a motion to approve those two resolutions? Moved by Ms. Niedergang. Is there a second? Seconded by Ms. Pearl-Lambros. Any questions or discussion on this one? Mr. Cohen?
I just noted that I saw on Nextdoor a day or two ago that there was a photo of a sign on the Butler tract that deer hunting would be happening over the next 6 months. And I'm asking whether there's any relevance or is that a separate university contract?
Can I respond to that, Mayor?
Yes, please.
So we passed recently a bow hunting agreement with a group of hunters who come and they shoot from very, very close range. Either they're in a tree or in a truck, including at Butler. I also saw that conversation on Nextdoor, and they've been working for us for several years. And so the bow hunting season is much longer than the sharpshooting season. So the two organizations combined are kind of deer call together. So it's really two separate things. You would not have a situation where you would be using guns at Butler. And the bow and arrow hunting is really reserved for, I'm not good with direction, so I'm not, but the part of Butler that's farthest removed from Harrison and is most kind of wild, and that's where they're doing their hunting. I know there were some concerns from the residents that they shouldn't let their children play there or they shouldn't ride their bikes there, and the hunters are extremely safe. They take a lot of measures to ensure the regulations are very strict. So there's no reason for people to worry about that.
And the length of the season is no different this year than in previous years?
Correct. For bow hunting, it's a much longer season. I think it's October or maybe even late September through February or March. It's like it's a long season. The sharpshooting season is just a couple of months, I think. Sorry, I should have those facts exactly at my fingers. But
Mr. Gresser, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, Councilwoman Niedergang, you're spot on. The bow hunting season starts in like mid to early September, and then typically lasts till about the new year. And then the sharpshooting season starts with baiting in the new year, and then the sharpshooting begins in like February, March. So it's a little bit later, but they're done in kind of unison, and it's all part of the New Jersey DEP Community Deer Management Program.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Mayor, I just,
oh yes.
Yeah, I just want to say I totally understand why we need to have this program, and I know that White Buffalo is quite excellent, but just because of my own, I can't vote for it, so I'm just going to abstain.
Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? And any abstentions?
Same.
Okay. Next is 2312, resolution requesting an extension to December 31st, 2020 by the Commissioner of the New Jersey Department of Transportation for the temporary traffic regulation EO 2020-25 LZ, establishing curbside pickup locations on Nassau Street, NJSH 27. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Ms. Fraga, seconded by Ms. Pearl-Lambros. Any questions or comments on this one? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution passes unanimously. Next is 2313, resolution authorizing the award of the contract known as Uniforms, May 2020 to May 2024 to UniFirst in the amount of $39,509 annually. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Niedergang, seconded by Mr. Cohen. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution passes unanimously. Next is 2314, resolution authorizing the VMG Group to make repairs at the Princeton Fire Department in the amount of $21,512.68. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Ms. Pearl-Lambros, seconded by Ms. Fraga. Any questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution passes unanimously. Next is 2315, resolution authorizing the award of the contract known as Princeton Fall 2020 Ash Replacement Project to Wetlands Incorporated in the amount of $25,740. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Ms. Sack, seconded by Ms. Niedergang. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution passes unanimously. Next is 2316, resolution authorizing the award of the contract known as Princeton Fall 2020 Planting Project to Wetlands Incorporated in the amount of $22,275. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Ms. Sacks, seconded by Ms. Lambros. Any questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution passes unanimously. Next is 2317, resolution authorizing the designation of a curbside pickup area in 2 on-street metered parking spaces on Palmer Square East in the municipal right-of-way. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Ms. Lambros, seconded by Ms. Fraga. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution passes unanimously. Next is 2318, resolution authorizing a professional services agreement with Dakota's Fitzpatrick, Cole and Giblin LLP in an amount not to exceed $50,000 for professional legal services, litigation, and special projects. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Ms. Sacks, seconded by Mr. Williamson. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution passes unanimously. Next is 2319, resolution authorizing a contract with Economic Development Strategist LLC, Stuart Copperweiss, in the amount of $17,500. And is there a motion to approve? Moved by Ms. Lambros, seconded by Ms. Fraga. I know Councilman Lambros, you already gave some comments on this at the top of the meeting. Did you want to say anything else at this point? Or I don't know if anybody has any questions or comments. Ms. Niedergang?
Yeah, I have 2 questions. Most of the areas of the cities that are listed that have special improvement districts, with a couple of exceptions, Bergenfield and Keyport, are significantly larger than Princeton. So one question is about what are the experience of smaller communities with that? And then the second question is more looking forward into what the next steps would be. So the proposal itself states that an EDC is usually funded by the government and supported via local, state, or federal grants. And the officer department is an arm of the municipality. But the memo that you wrote says in the majority of the communities, this staff will be, sorry, I can't see my screen. This staff would work on behalf of, be paid for, and report to the business community directly. So I guess what I'm wondering is, what are the implications for us going forward? Is this a one-time expense, or is this likely to be, something that will be continuing to, and I'm not objecting, I'm just asking.
Yeah, no, good questions. I'll defer the first question. Maybe Michael, I think, or Justin are on the call, and they have more experience with the varying communities. So maybe they can answer that better than I can, but I can tell you that I've seen very small communities have special improvement districts to larger communities. There isn't a foregone conclusion here that we would go to a special improvement district. The idea is that this is just the beginning of a conversation. So, sorry, it would very much be that this is the first step. And then depending on what the business community wants, we really want the business community to be driving this and not something that's top down, the municipality telling the business community, but rather we're facilitating their conversation. So, so this would be a first step, and we hope that if there's a good consensus, or at least a majority consensus, that we would move forward either with Stewart or in another direction. But this would be the first step. And I think the total, if we did move to a special improvement district and we did go with Stewart, would be about 48,000. So this would be the first piece of that. So that's a good question. And the second piece, I'm going to defer, maybe Michael or Justin can answer that if they're on the call. If you need further clarification, Eve.
Yeah, I think Justin has his hand up. If we can bring him over. And Michael also, maybe we can just bring them both over.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Yep. To the question about the sizes, I was part of a research studio in grad school a few years back where we did a census of improvement districts throughout the state. We found, I believe there were 84 improvement districts in 70 municipalities, ranging from small South Jersey or shore towns all the way up to Newark and Jersey City. So there's not necessarily a correlation with size. There's more so a correlation with downtown areas like the one we have in Princeton.
Thank you.
Michael, do you want to add anything to that?
I can't add much to that. Justin did a great job. I would just say that in my experience, having worked in Westfield as both the manager of the Westfield Main Street program and the executive director of the special improvement district that was later set up there, there's an amazing variety of these types of programs and in the types of communities that they're located in. There's very small ones like Salem and Salem County. There's places in the state like Patterson that has several smaller management districts within one municipality. So they might just be at a neighborhood scale. And then there's very large ones like the cities that you've referenced. So tremendous amount of variety, and there's many different ways a business district or a community can be organized for economic development. So we shouldn't get locked into one type of one choice yet. We should keep our eye. I think it's really important to keep our minds open to all the.
We lost you.
We lost you, Michael.
Yeah, but I think we got the gist of what you were saying, which was
Thank
good.
you.
Are there any other further comments or questions on this one? And I should have introduced both Michael and Justin with the Princeton's planning department. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, resolution passes unanimously. And now we come to 2321, resolution urging the passage of S2051, establishing fire safety standards for multifamily light frame residential construction. Is there a motion to approve? Wow, okay, moved by Ms. Sack, seconded by Mr. Cohen. I do have one comment that came in on this, but are there any questions or comments from council before I read it?
That came from Grace Sinden?
It did, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so this is from Grace Sinden, Ridgeview Circle. This is to urge you to pass the above resolution at tonight's meeting so that Princeton residents, present and future, are better protected than is now the case with currently allowed ever larger housing structures built with highly combustible light wood. Such a much-needed improved fire code must occur at the state level. It is urgent that Princeton support this legislation, one of whose primary sponsors is Senator Loretta Weinberg, who has worked diligently on this issue for some time. She's also the New Jersey Senate Majority Leader next in official line after Senate President Sweeney. In addition, our own District 16 Senator Bateman, representing Princeton, is co-sponsor of this legislation. Huge fires that have taken place in New Jersey, Edgewater 2, Maplewood, Lakewood, Princeton, and elsewhere, including one fire-related death here in town, Griggs Farm, where almost 40 people were displaced from their homes for a year or more, causing great hardship. In one such fire in Edgewater in 2015, 9 nearby homes were also destroyed. It is urgent that our municipal government support this legislation now when support is most needed. Thank you for doing your part to move us to a fire safety goal, protecting our residents and municipality and businesses, both physically and financially. Oh, I see that Mr. Liverman is still with us and has his hand up. So wanted to call on Councilman Liverman.
Yeah, I should be in bed. I really should be in bed, you know.
I think
really
you're getting the bug again, Lance. We wouldn't know. You could be in bed in your pajamas. It's like, we can't see you.
That is too cute, too cute. I love all you guys. I just want to say Grace Sinden has been a not just advocate for Princeton, but a blessing for us. And I just want to say, if there's any way in the near future that we can have a proclamation or something for Grace, I would support it 100%. And that's what I'm saying. I mean, it's not just this issue, but it's many issues that she has stepped up and written for us in Princeton that are positive. So that's just what I'm saying. and I'm done with that. Thank you.
Thanks, Lance.
Thank you, Lance.
Thank you
That's a
guys
good
so much.
suggestion.
Thank you guys
Good
so
night,
much.
Lance.
Please. I know. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, Mr. Cohen.
Yeah, I just wanted to say a couple of words about this because I have been working with the local group advocating and was actually up at a meeting in North Jersey with Loretta Weinberg last year advocating for it. And I want to say that this, number one, this is something that the firefighting community is 100% behind. And it's really a question of the safety of those individuals. The conflagrations you get in these large lightwood construction buildings are incredibly hard and dangerous to fight. So that's a strong reason for moving in the direction of greater fire safety with these. The other thing that I think is of concern to Princeton residents is that as these projects are built in parts of town that are already built up, and that's what we're talking about with our smart growth, affordable housing plan and so forth, it becomes especially important because if it's off, in a field somewhere, and it burns down, fire protection systems may save lives. You have a total loss of property, but so it's covered by insurance. But if it's in town, you really have the risk of these fires spreading to adjacent structures. So it's especially important to move to improve fire safety in the construction. And the building code organizations have not been doing their job on this because they've been heavily lobbied by developers who just want to keep doing things the way they always have done. So it really does need to be something that comes sort of from a top down from the state. So I just wanted to share that level of detail so people could feel more comfortable supporting this.
Thanks, David. I mean, it looks like Michael has his hand up. I'm not sure if that's from earlier or if you had, Michael, a place if you had something you wanted to add to this. Nope. Okay. Ms. Sachs?
Yeah, I just wanted to also thank Grace and Kip, who's here tonight, for reaching out and all their work and helping to craft this resolution and their work at the state level.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, resolution passes unanimously. Thank you for that. And now we come to the consent agenda, which contains items of a routine nature passed by a single vote. Are there any items on the consent agenda anyone would like removed? And if not, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Moved by Ms. Fraga, seconded by Ms. Niedergang. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Cohen, seconded by Ms. Niedergang. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everybody, and have a good night. We can all join Lance and having a good night's sleep.
See you all Saturday morning.
Okay, bye.
Bye.